Yellow, welcome back to the BoomBastiCAST. Always a pleasure to have you. Hoping to get some laughs and some brain itching, some thoughts and ideas going through your brainstem this evening. Good times. We got a wonderful guest with us. The great Joey Gaynor is with us. That's right. Actor, comedian, writer, wrestling manager. The guy's done fucking everything. And when it comes to comedy, the dude's known everyone. You know what I mean? All the legends. He came up with all the legends, and a lot of good shit that we tapped into with him today on that stuff. He working in movies, working on television shows, in the comedy club. I know that the world famous Comedy Store in Sunset, haunted thing. He knows about that. He was actually on Unsolved Mysteries talking about it. A lot of really cool stuff, you know. But I don't want to give too much away. We're gonna let kind of Joey spin a yarn, you know what I mean? What's that? Spin a yarn mean what? Tell a tale? That's right. He's gonna tell a tale, not just any tale, his tale, an American tale, straight from New Jersey to California to the episode of the BoomBastiCAST. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Unless Alex Hauck wants to say anything else, I'll introduce.
Well, all I want to say is that I, from everything he's worked with, some of the greats, as Matt alluded to, like Richard Pryor, Tim Allen,
Doug Clay, Bill Hicks, Robert Townsend. You know what I mean? I'm hoping, you know, when we regularly do these after the show. So I'm gonna say right now, I'm hoping to hear a little Rodney D. Some Rodney Dangerfield stories would be cool to catch up in here. Yeah, very cool stuff, you know what I mean? We might even hear about how First and 10 fucked everybody out of money when it came to residuals. You know what I mean? But yeah, this gentleman's kind of worked with an onslaught of BoomBastiCAST guests. You know, Cynthia Rothrock doing it big, Ethan Embry doing it big style. Who am I forgetting?
Patrick Kilpatrick,
Patrick
John
Kilpatrick.
Carpenter.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kudos to Steve for hooking this up. This is a Steve hookup, so kudos out there in the world doing it big. And yeah, I mean, with that being said, there's really not much more for us to say. Now it's stuff for Joe to say. As we welcome him to the first time, I feel like we're gonna have a lot of fun. So I think we might even get a second batch with him. Two baller, two doses, double shotgun. You know what I mean? Bang bang. Cactus Jack style. You know what I mean? To catch them reference. Adrian Adonis is his cousin, legendary wrestler. You know what I mean? But hell yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. We hope you all enjoy it. And so, for the first time, welcome to the BoomBastiCAST, the great Joey Gaynor. Joey, welcome to the BoomBastiCAST. Pleasure to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here. I love that you guys are out of Boston, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, even though I'm a Yankee fan, Rico Petrocelli, Carl Yastrzemski, and of course, the only coach for me for the Celtics was Big Bill. So those are the guys I remember, and Havlicek and all that. But yeah, I'm a Knicks fan, a Yankee fan. No better, greater rivalry, I will say, than Boston and New York teams, because both of them are great fans. I could talk to somebody else about baseball. They could be from LA or whatever, and it becomes a moot point because all they know is one thing, their team, that everybody else sucks. Talk to somebody from Boston, Baltimore, and New York, and you can talk all day baseball. So yeah. Great fans up there, basketball, hockey. And I remember back in the days of Bobby Orr, because we used to listen on BC. We'd get the game in on the radio. We'd tune it in.
Well, yeah. I definitely feel the fans is what makes the team so good. I mean, you could have the best team in the world if you don't get a good team supporting fans supporting them. You might as well, you know,
Exactly.
it's like doing
Exactly.
comedy in an empty room type deal, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it was always exciting when the Knicks played the Celtics and Bill Russell was on was with them. It was always exciting to see the Patriots play the Jets when I was a kid and
Yeah.
go out to the Jet games. And I won't get into the Giants in the Super Bowl. I don't want anybody to get pissed because we lucked out twice. I'm not complaining. Last year, our Super Bowl was against the Cardinals. I went to the game here. And after the game, I said, "That's our Super Bowl. Enjoy it." A lot of New York Giants fans were there, and I kept telling them, "This is it. This is it." So and unfortunately, I was right. But let's proceed with your
So, well,
docket.
we usually like to start off at a good spot over at the beginning of the journey. So, like, I believe there's a whole bunch of different cool things you've done, but comedy was the first kind of step in the entertainment world, or
Well,
was it the wrestling stuff? Because I know that your
no,
cousin, yeah,
yeah, that was a Keith Frank, Adrian Adonis was we found out we were cousins. We never knew each other until that happened. I started, uh, my father died in 1963, and I was like 8 years old at the time. And so we made a trip to California to kind of get away from, so I got to miss like a half a year of school and hang around my uncle that was a bookmaker in LA and hang around the bar. And I began to know how to do a racing form long before I knew long division. And by the time I got back to Catholic school in New Jersey, it literally like I was like a Henry Hill, like who needs this good government bullshit,
yeah,
And but I started singing in nightclubs when I was a little kid, and it was like a novelty. So I was making $35 a night on the weekends at a place here in LA. It's still there. It's a 5-star place called the Del Rey, and then came back to Newark, New Jersey, and was doing nothing. So it was but that's where I got the bug. I just always want to be an entertainer, and then moved to California in '74 with my family, and my uncle had a ticket business, the same nefarious uncle, and but he was the first guy to sell quote hippie tickets when all the big brokers didn't want the smelly hippies coming into their office. He said, "Well, there's money in Jimi Hendrix and the Doors, and their money's green. I don't care if their teeth are green. Their money's green."
yeah.
So he had we had access to go to all of these shows, and I went. Uh, the first time I saw a live comedian was Freddie Prinz at the Universal Amphitheater, and he opened for Helen Reddy. Oh my God, this sounds like, but this is like almost 50 years ago. It's amazing, You see
Yeah.
all this shit transpire since, and it's so. I go and I see Freddie Prinz, and he was, I'm like, wow, look at that, this guy's really good. And this was in August of '75, and Richard Pryor comes to the Schubert Theater a couple of months later in October of '75. Now, my idol as far as a comedian was always Richard Pryor. From the time I was a little kid, I'd see him on Merv Griffin and whatever, and this guy was just he captured my imagination like nobody had. Not Carlin, not anybody ever captured my imagination the way Richard would do characters and be, if you'd see the person, And
Well,
so I
yeah.
went to see him 3 nights out of the 5 that he played the Schubert Theater, and I was so blown away by the performances. Every night he opened up with a different joke. Every night he did basically the same material, not in the same order, but he would do it just a little different each night. It was just something like this. He left room for spontaneity,
Mhm.
and I found out that, and then it was Christmas time. I went to there was a big show here in Los Angeles of Cavalcade of Stars. They used to do those. So they had a Christmas show. Donnie and Marie were on it, but Freddie Prinz was on it, and he did a joke about flicking your bick. My mom said, if I flick my bick, I go blind. And there were a lot of families there, and you see these conservative California people in Orange County put their heads down, you know, and I'm laughing my ass off. So I had found out that the Comedy Store in LA is where Richard Pryor would work out. Well, I would go there almost every night waiting for him to show up, not realizing he's on tour. He's not showing up. But I saw Freddie Prinze a few times. And I also saw guys like Jay Leno, who was not a household name yet. And guys like Steve Landisberg, Michael Preminger, Dave Letterman was performing. And this little bitty hole in the wall. And I would go there, and that became my college. I was going every night, and I decided this might be what I want to do. I like to perform, but when you're in a band or whatever, you got to deal with 38 other personalities. So I said, no, I can deal with my 38 personalities up there. So I got some good advice from a guy named Steve Landisberg, who was Dietrich on Barney Miller. I asked him, is 5 minutes on the potluck night enough to get the audience going? And he just looked at me and very nicely said, well, it's a fucking eternity if you're not funny. And I said, oh, God, can we go have coffee? And I'll wait another 2 months before I So I waited, and I finally went on, and I unfortunately, I made regular the first night I ever performed, which is a curse because it took me 2 years to figure out what in the hell I was doing. I was having to go on after guys like Leno and these people, and these guys were gods. I mean, I got to meet that year, it was 76. I got to meet Robin Williams late in 76 because he came down from San Francisco, and that was another guy that, whoa, look at how this guy works.
Yeah.
And it took me another year and a half to really learn the craft of stand-up. It's not just get up there and talk. There's a lot of guys now, they think that's what it is, and you try to explain to them, well, I got, I want to, okay, great, go, I don't care. But anyway, that's how that happened. And then wrestling, I fell into that inadvertently about 11 years later. I met Keith, Adrian Adonis, at the Olympic Auditorium in 1984. And he came out in the leather outfit with the, he's walking around, and I started to make a chant, which basically was that Adonis is gay. It's 1984, but the whole building started chanting it. I won't use the 3-letter word.
Oh. We won't. They kick you off of YouTube for that
nowadays. But the building started chanting, and he's running around covering his ears. The bad guy wrestlers all came out, Don Morocco, all these guys, and they're all putting the hands on his ears. You know, that thing where they all come out to try to, and he's screaming, crying, like going nuts. So he has the match. I don't even remember who he wrestled. It was and at the end of the night, we were saying goodnight to my friend Les Kirshner, who ran the building at the time. And they are standing by the loading door where everybody came in, and the TV truck would normally be, is Adrian Adonis. And he's in his sweats, and he's got 2 luggage bags, 2 duffel bags. And he's standing there like a kid lost in the mall looking for his family. And I got to go out that door. And I'm like, oh, man, now I got to confront the guy. So I walked up and I went, hey, Mr. Adonis. Actually, it was more like, hey, Mr. Adonis. Man, it was a really great show. And I'm start talking to him. And I said, hey, I started that, gay chant. He just looked at me, and I thought, here comes a big meaty hand across. And he goes, you started that? And I went, yeah, I'm sorry. He goes, no. You see how that got me over? Now, I didn't know what got me over meant. I didn't know what getting over meant. I went, what do you mean? He goes, the crowd, they went crazy. You gave me an idea. I'm like, I gave you an, oh, okay. We start talking. And I said, well, I'm from New Jersey and everything. And he was from Buffalo. And he missed his flight. There was a commuter flight that went to Bakersfield, where he was living with his family. He missed the flight, and there was no, so my friend TJ Schwartz, who was he's passed away now, but he was the main editor for Tough Stuff magazine, if you remember Tough Stuff, for the baseball cards, football, right? So we said, hey, well, we'll give you a ride, so we went back to TJ's house in Van Nuys, and we spent the night, like the whole night. When are you going to be with a world, like a wrestler, a guy in the sport you watch and wonder, what is this? And
Yeah.
sit with him all night. So we sat all night and we talked and talked about, I don't know, just about everything. We were up, it was the 80s, so it was easy to stay up all night. And,
Yeah. Good
and,
coffee.
but
Yeah.
the funny part was, TJ's friend, was there also. He lived in Bakersfield. And at the end of the conversation, he goes, well, geez, I don't know how I'm going to get to bed. And the other guy goes, well, I live there. And he goes, oh, now you tell me. So anyway, I got his number. We talked that night on the phone, and I said, whenever you come down, if you need a ride from the airport or whatever, give me a buzz. I'll pick you up, blah, blah, blah. We became really close friends. So after 2 years, I'm picking him up at the airport, and I pick him up one night at the airport. There's no flights. There's no flight to Bakersfield. There's nothing. And I said, well, you don't want me to drive you. He goes, no, I don't think it's a good idea. We drive to Bakersfield at 1 o'clock in the morning. So we go back to my place. And at the time I lived with my mom. My mom was in her 70s or whatever. And Italians, we don't leave them in the woods. So terrible. But no, my mom is she was a huge wrestling fan until the day she died. She cursed out Jerry Lawler the day before she died watching WWE. So I go and knock on her bedroom door, and I go, listen, we have a guest here. He's going to spend the night. She says, who? I said, Adrian Adonis, Keith, my friend. She goes, that guy's here? I go, yeah. She goes, won't he like go nuts and wreck everything? And I said, no. She laughed. So the next morning I get up, I come out of my bedroom, and she made him breakfast, and he's sitting there eating. And my mom, when she made breakfast, it was like, 5 eggs, a pound of bacon, it never was one thing. It's Italians, you can't,
Right.
So I come out, and she's got all these family photos all over the place. And I'm on, and he goes, did you know we're related? And I said, how are we? He goes, well, we have to be cousins or something, because I'm adopted and my original name is Caputo. And then my mom pulled out all these photos, and he looked like everybody in the family, he had that face. We all have that. And we became even closer. And shortly before his death, I hooked him up finally with a real agent. My agent at the time was Sportscasting Period, a guy named Joe Kokowitz. And Joe was salivating to get somebody like this, And he signed the with Joe in April or May of '88. And he immediately got a Sports Illustrated commercial. He got a thing from Japan. General Hospital wanted to interview him, and he started getting all these offers that start pouring in, like to read. And he called me up, and he said, wow, he goes, I knew you were a comedian. I knew this and that, but I didn't realize you were the real deal. I said, oh yeah. I said, you said you had an agent in Minnesota, but that guy was an insurance agent. He wasn't like, So he called me up. He was going to re-sign with NWA, Ted Turner, and I was going to be his manager, Caligula Adonis, because I started to work in the wrestling business in '87. A friend of mine that I met, a wrestler who was a local guy in LA named Pistol Pete Marquez. He actually lived like a block from my uncle's office, and I saw there's Pistol Pete walking down the street. I said, hey, Pistol Pete. And he and his buddies, they'd had a ring in the back of the house, and they'd work out. So he showed me how they work out. And that was the end of kayfabe. I began to understand the business. And he said, we have a new outfit. It's called Muscle Rock. And they need an announcer. So I'm going to introduce you to Eric Shaw. And I became the announcer for Muscle Rock, which I then said, well, we got to be a federation. So we became the International Wrestling Federation, the IWF. And we had Dr. D. David Schultz was the first interview I ever did. Keith called him up and said, hey, it's my cousin, don't kill him. And the interview went great. Now, Dr. D was a pro. I knew about the John Stossel thing, and I thought that was a stupid. Is it real? That's
it was stupid on his behalf. Yeah,
what
the interviewer.
What you ask is like, what's the percentage of injuries, or how often do guys get very badly hurt doing doing the maneuvers. I mean, you could ask questions like that back then.
Yeah.
And I did that. We had the Samoans, we had the Guerreros, Mondo Guerrero, Chavo Guerrero, and Eddie Guerrero when he was a blossoming young guy. As a matter of fact, Chavo, the late Chavo and Mondo came to me and said, you know, Eddie he's got to learn how to do. Not that he was dumb, he just didn't know interviews. He didn't get to
Yeah.
do a lot of interviews. He'd been working in Mexico and stuff, and they really weren't. He wasn't doing a lot of interviews. So I said, yeah, I'll work with him. And Eddie was, come on, he was a smart guy. He was just nervous.
Yeah.
He was a kid, and I said to him, well, let's do an interview. And I winked at the cameraman to roll the tape. And Eddie didn't know. And I said, well, let's practice. And I said, well, here we are with Eddie Guerrero, the latest in the line from the Guerrero Wrestling Factory. And I've watched you, Eddie, and you have every skill your brothers have. I think you're a chip off the old block of your dad, Gory. And we went on this whole thing. We taped it. And afterwards, he went, oh, that felt really good. Because I told him, just talk like you're talking to anybody. You know, you're not, right now, this is about you. You're not talking about next week. I'm going to see that. I'm going to get that guy. And they played it back and he was amazed. I said, see, that's all it is. It's talking. I said, talk about, I'll ask you, I'll point you. And I really enjoyed working with him. He was, the whole family was great. And we got to work, you know, I worked in 2019 before the pandemic. We did another Muscle Rock show. It had been a long time. And we did it at the Culver City Arena, whereas the first show I ever did was at the Culver City Arena in '87. And we honored a World War II veteran. And the tag team, I'm trying to think of the name of them, doggone it. Was it Prime Time or Crime Time? It was the black tag team that were world champions in WWE and stuff. And about a month after we did that, the one fellow drowned, trying to save his own son.
His kid.
And,
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah. And I'm sorry, I get bad with names because I got ADD, so it goes all over the joint. And but the other show that I started doing because of that, we started doing a show in LA called Incredibly Strange Rock and Roll Wrestling. And this became an entity unto itself, or a little, it was becoming an exploding thing. Chris Jericho would come down and hang out backstage and watch the show. Louis Piccoli would come down. Lots of guys. My character in that, my manager character, was L. Ron Farrakhan, and he was a mausoleontologist, whatever that is. And he preaches unity through division. In other words, yes, we all want to live with our own. And yes, it's a good thing that we all live in our own neighborhoods and we keep to ourselves and we mind our business, because once there's a tragedy, we all band together, and that is unity through division. And this is before 9/11 happened. And one night I'm up there doing this, and I mean, we're developing a big following. We were at a place called Moguls in Hollywood. Every show would be sold out. I don't mean 300 people. I mean, there'd be like 1,000 people, because there were 3 different rooms. They put a TV in each room so people could watch what's going on in the big room. And we had rock and roll bands. We had great professional wrestling stuff. I even wrestled twice as L. Ron Farrakhan. And I wrestled the Ku Klux Clown once. And then I got my wish, and I wrestled a guy in a wheelchair, which was hysterical because they couldn't get the wheelchair in the ring, so they rolled him in.
Yeah.
It was my friend Eric Caden pretending, the late Eric Caden, and they rolled him into the ring. And I'm no wrestler. I'm doing all the stuff I see on TV, you know. Yeah. And but the shows at Moguls were great. And one night, shortly before he passed away, I'm up there doing my spiel, and I used to give out the personality test. I'd print up 100 and I'd get back 97. People would really fill them out. They were so into this thing, and it was great. It really is. It's fun. I mean, I love the sport of wrestling. To me, it's as much fun as doing stand up. It really is. And it's just to me, it's another form. And I'm doing the spiel, and I feel like 10 tons on top of me all of a sudden, like a bear jumped on me. And I turn, and this big meaty hand grabs the mic away from me. And it's Chris Farley, the late Chris Farley.
Oh,
And he
no shit.
grabs the mic and he goes, "This man is doing God's work. If you're not following this man, you are not a Christian. You are not a holy person. This man is saving the world, one ethnic group at a time." And I'm in awe. I'm like, holy shit, it's Chris fucking Farley.
Yeah.
And after it was done, and I talked to him a little bit afterwards, and he was really, I mean, the guy was really, really wrecked. And I noticed something. He was sweating right through his sport coat, but his people just kept giving him more beer and more. They weren't handling him. They were
Right.
enabling him.
Yeah,
And the same thing with John Belushi. They just enabled the guy, because I met John Belushi at the Comedy Store. I met him the first time at a Jerry Lee Lewis concert at the old Palomino in LA. He came in, and he sat right in front of me, and I tapped him on the shoulder, and he turned around with that, that look.
yeah.
And I just said, "I'm glad you're a Jerry Lee Lewis fan. I thought I was the only one. Now I know I'm cool." And he just looked at me and he went, "Yeah, you're cool." So I don't want to bother the guy. And then he showed up at the Comedy Store a few times, and we talked very little. It was like, "Hey, how you doing? Hey, hello." And oddly enough, I got invited to the Chateau Marmont to go up. He said, "Hey, that guy that's in the main room in the comedy bit, I saw him we used to do the sickest bit. We had a group called Spaghetti and Meatballs, and we did a lot of impressions, but I talked him into doing this bit, the deer hunter. Okay, it's supposed to be me and my friend. We're at a Vietnamese restaurant, and we're fighting over the bill. And we tell the waiter, you know what? You make a game out of the bill. Eating, eating. And the waiter goes, game. And he goes right into putting the bullet in the gun. He puts the red things on our head.
Yeah.
And this is at a time when they didn't cancel you right away. And we did the whole thing. I was the De Niro character, and my friend Ross Bennett played the Christopher Walken guy, and we do the whole thing. I mean, it was so intense and crazy. Motherfucker, I'll shoot you, mother. Take a run on to shoot him, Nicky. Fucking, oh fuck you. I mean, it was so intense. It was a crazy bit. And Belushi told a friend of mine, the late Mitch Walters, who was a writer and everything, "Hey, bring your friend up. He's really funny. He's nuts." That was really crazy to do that kind of a bit. And I got a call the next day that our group had to go down to La Jolla and perform, so I never went up there. And I'm actually glad I didn't, because you don't want to be involved in stuff like that. Why? I mean, it would have been, if it was just it was like a Godsmack. He pushed me over to the side. He said, "Here, you go. No, you're not going up there." And De Niro was up. Well, yeah, everybody knows the whole story. I mean, it was very tragic. Again, I'm not trying to get down here, but I've avoided some tragedies.
It's good.
I survived Kinison. Hey, so
yeah. I had a question about with the Farley and Belushi. They were so much alike. I know with Farley, like, you can almost see the sadness within Farley. Did Belushi have that same type of vibe too? Was he always
I didn't,
upbeat?
with Chris Farley, I only met him that one night, but you could see there was a thing going on. He was just a big kid having a good time, and they just let him have too much of a good time. Nobody was smacking his hands that I could see. I'm not putting his family down or whatever. I don't know the inner workings. You can't control a person day after day. There's quite a few guys I knew. Freddie Prinze, I got to know from hanging out. I would park his Stingray when I'd be at the Improv on Sunday night. Was the open mic night and we'd all go for the show to do the Improv on when I'm starting out. And Byron Allen introduced me to Freddie Prinze, because Byron Allen's mother worked at NBC and knew Freddie, so he knew Byron. And Byron was a kid 14, 15. He introduced me to Freddie, and I had a big afro at the time, so I think Freddie thought I had coke. He wasn't happy when I didn't. But I would see him at the Improv, and he'd throw the keys to me, and he'd go, "Hey, kitty comic, find me a parking space." So I'd go out and I'd take that fucking thing up Mulholland, and I'd drive it for a half hour and come back. And he'd go, "I guess there ain't no parking spaces out there, huh?" And I go, "Oh, I know, I found you a good one." And he'd just laugh. And the funny thing is, he would sit and he'd flip the keys like this while he's waiting to go on. He'd be flipping his, he had a quarter in the little keychain that had the Chevy thing on it, the little leather, remember the little leather keychains you get with the metal, and he had a quarter in there, and he would sit and flip. And I years later, George Lopez showed up at the Ice House. I was opening for George, but he came in and he said, "Look at this." He gave me one of Freddie Prinze's old suits, and he held up a green suit that Freddie would wear. And I was like, "Well, that's pretty cool." And then he throws this set of keys to me, and I looked at it, and I hadn't seen these keys since 1977. All right, and this was in 1997, 98, and or 99, something like that. And I'm flipping the keys. I put them on my finger and I started flipping them, because his manager at the time, Ron de Blasio, also handled Freddie Prinze. So I'm sitting there flipping the keys because I know Ron's going to walk in, and I told Ron I knew him, but I knew he didn't believe me. So I'm sitting there flipping the keys like this, and Ron walks in the dressing room and he goes, "Hey, you know what? Holy Christ, you really did know him." And I said, "If I said I know somebody, Ron." And I took him and I flipped him to Ron, and I went, "Now go park my Stingray." And he, I said, "I used to park his car. I knew Freddie." I mean, very sad thing with Freddie, man. Freddie was one of the saddest things I ever saw. He'd go on stage and he'd be the happiest guy, and he'd come off and it would just, he'd down a bottle of Blue Nun wine like it was a bottle of water. I mean, the guy just had a lot of problems going on. Again, he was going to a psychiatrist or whatever. The psychiatrist gave him the gun back. There's a lot of stories about that, but the psychiatrist gave him back his gun. So real brilliant guy there. And I don't think Freddie was trying to commit suicide. He was fucking around with the gun like Terry Kath. It ain't loaded. And that was the guy in Chicago, right? Pow. So it's a very sad thing, very sad. I mean, I've seen a lot of guys in this business go out that, we just lost Angel Salazar, was a good friend of mine, very funny guy. In Scarface, he's shorter than Pacino. It's Tony. And we lost a guy in LA. I'm gonna put his name out there, Perry Kurtz, who was 73. He got killed by hit and run. And Perry got to do some TV here and there, and he never hit big, but I will give him this. He never stopped. He never stopped. I really don't like to talk to guys who quit the business and Hollywood's fucked. And, well, how long did you do it? I did it for 5 years. Really? Rodney did it for 60. I mean, I look at myself and I dropped out because I got sick, whatever, life happens, and you fall out of this. And I came back a few years ago. I was mentoring a young comic, and I started going to the open mics with him to watch him. And I'd be sitting in the back, and it'd been so long since I've been in a nightclub. I'd be like this, and they'd elbow me, wake up. And if it wasn't for that person who has transitioned now to become Savannah Manhattan, which is fine. I mean, I made him the woman he is today. No, I've said that to her and she laughs. But the point is, if I hadn't done that, I would probably been really miserable, never doing this again. And this is what I love. I love acting. I like writing. I love improv. This is what I love. I love to get up and sing at karaoke. I sing Man in the Box, and they look at me like is that some old rock star? Because I can sing the song. Most guys can't even sing, Yankee Doodle. And I'm not bragging, but I am bragging. But it's my friend Andy Huggins is coming out here for those of you who haven't seen him, you check him out on Tubi. He's got a special that's on there, and he did a Don't Tell comedy special. And Andy's 74 and rocking. He's rocking it. And there's a lot of guys that look. I got to meet Rodney several times. I'll tell you a story. And
I love Rodney. Yeah.
I wasn't in the room, but my friend Dan Barton, who's a writer, and he wrote for Sam, and he's written for a lot of. He used to produce a show that made, I think, lots of young men get through puberty, called Wild on the E channel, if you remember that, with all the models.
Yep.
And yeah, Dan's a prolific writer and everything. And he was telling a story to me about they were hanging out. Sam was hanging out with. That's another tragic story, but Sam was hanging out with Rodney, and Sam would get, high, and he would tell his life story, not once, not twice, but over and over and over. Now, I tell my story when I do podcasts or whatever, and I'm writing a book, which the title right now is called I Was in the Room. I don't know if that's going to be the selling title. I'd rather put, hey, fuckface, buy this book, you prick. But that might get more people to watch.
That's the catch line.
Yeah, it's much catchier. But anyway, they were sitting there. So Sam, again, tells his life story. And I started out, I was a preacher, and I came to LA, and I had to live on somebody's floor, and blah, 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 blah. And Sam had only really been in comedy since like 1979. So it's only been about 6 or 7 years that he's gone through all this horror. And Rodney lets him talk. And Sam sits back on the chair, and the legs come off the floor. It's one of those hotel chairs. And he sits back, and Rodney takes a hit on a joint and kicks the chair out from under it. And he goes, yeah, according to your life, your life is fucking Disneyland, according to mine. Yeah, try coming back in this fucking business with no friends when you're 54 and nobody fucking likes you. Yeah, you tried doing that. Yeah, your fucking life. You're Disneyland. You fuck, if it wasn't for me, you'd still be sleeping on a floor. And Sam's, well, because Rodney would show up at the Comedy Store in the old days before they had Sacred Ground and pot was legal. We'd all be behind the Comedy Store in the alley smoking pot, and the fucking limo would pull up. Big black limo would pull up, and I'd look over and I'd go, that's got to be Rodney. Who else is riding around a limo 3 a.m? And the door would open, and sure enough, out would come a foot with a slipper, pajamas, and a robe, getting out of. Here's Rodney in a robe and pajamas. Hey, what's going on? Hey, how are you? Hey, what? Hey, give me the joint. Hey, how you doing? And Sam goes, hey, Rodney, you're the king. And Rodney went, hey, don't soft soak me, fat man. Give me the fucking joint, And I got to talk to Rodney a few times, and I told him I got to see him when I was actually, he is the first comedian I really ever saw. I was about 10 years old, and we were in Keensburg, New Jersey, gateway to, better amusement parks in New Jersey. So we're down there, and there was a place called the Club Miami. And the Club Miami was right there on the main drag, and they would put the names of people that are going to be there on the wall. So I see Rodney Dangerfield and trying to think of the other guy. London Lee was another comedian in the 60s who was a big name. And I said to my mom, look, Rodney Dangerfield's going to be there. She goes, yeah, but you got to be 21 to get in there. So forget about it. We can't go in there, All right. So there was an alley you'd cut through to get to the boardwalk. And as I'm walking, I see there's a window into the club, looking in the club. So I climbed up on the soda boxes. And I look, and you could see the stage straight away. So I come back that night, and I get on the soda boxes, and I watched the whole first show. I watched Rodney. They had a music guy and a little bit or whatever, and then Rodney does his 45 minutes. It's hysterically funny. Hey, when I go out for a ride, it's a family push. Hey, we're gonna does all of his stuff. And I go get a hot dog and a soda for the second show. And when I come back, the boxes are gone. There's a big guy standing there going, hey, what do you think this is? A circus? Get the fuck out of here. So I told Rodney about that, and he laughed about it. And then a friend of mine had mentioned it to him. And he said, yeah, tell that guy he owes me 2 drinks and a cover charge. From, excuse me. And It's something else. But the best mentoring I got really was from Richard Pryor. That was the guy. I got to open for him, work with him, and the great thing was this was this was when Richard was sober. He had been through sobriety and everything, so I was very respectful around him. I didn't drink any alcohol. I didn't do anything, and we would we'd do the show, and then he'd hang around the Comedy Store late, and I'd sit with him in the main room in the back, just he and I, several times. And finally, one night, I said to him, when you want to do a piece about a very serious subject, how do you bridge? How do you do that? How do you take a tragedy and make and turn it into a humorous bit? And he looks at me for a second, and he takes a big drag on his cigarette. He exhales, and I'm waiting for this philosophical 2-hour answer. He turns and goes, "Just put the funny in. See, you put the funny in, and then fuck them. Then it's funny. You put the funny in, and that's it. 4 fucking words. Put the funny in." And that's, I see guys now that they don't know how to put the funny in. I don't know what to tell them. I mean, they go up there and they, yeah, I took a shit this morning, and yeah, that's great. That's great. Here, could I get my food to go? Because I'm not going to be able to eat. And that was it. That was that was the magic straw that broke the camel's back as far as trying to figure out how to make something tragic funny. And that doesn't mean I would go up and do 9/11 jokes right away. I had them, but they weren't about the people that died. They were about the terrorists. And excuse me, people today might not accept those jokes, although they didn't know anybody that died there, so maybe that's why. But I did, and I'm not too happy about it. But we won't go in that direction.
Sure.
But
well, that's why Richard, to go back to Richard real quick, I mean, that's why I think he people love him so much, because there was a real personal, it was almost like a personal interaction the way he performed. He'd talk about his dark life, and like
he made it that he was talking to you, right, when he was on TV or in the whether it was the Comedy Store, the small stage, the big room. Saw him at the Schubert Theater. When he walked out, the first time I ever saw him live at the Schubert Theater, he walked out. This was at the time of Patty Hearst. That whole thing going on. She was still a hostage, I think. And he walked on stage, and he looks at the audience, and he literally, like, the way he looked at everybody was like he was looking right at you, and he went, "Patty Hearst, bitch got some dick and went crazy. She don't want to leave. She don't want to leave now." Says, came back home, and the parents said, "Oh, you're home." She said, "I came back for my clothes, motherfucker." And from that moment on, the shit he did about Nixon, all of this stuff was just amazing. It was amazing. He was promoting the album Is It Something I Said? And I have that poster. It's locked away because I had him sign it with a ballpoint pen. So the autograph is fading. You can see where he signed it, but I lock it away in the dark because I don't want it to completely, but yeah, he was, I think of all the acts I would watch, the guys I really liked to watch and I'd learned from were Richard Pryor, oddly enough, another Richard Belzer. Big Dick Belzer was, "Hey, bud, how you doing, bud?" And I like to watch him. Letterman was another guy because he was so dry. Yeah. And and of course another guy that the wrestling kind of evolved out of Andy Kaufman, because I would referee for him and stuff in the main room, and I hung out with Andy a lot. We got to be friends, and oh God, he would have me make phone calls. He would be in a room and I'd call up, and he would either have Bob Zamuda or myself call up as what's his name, Tony Clifton. Yeah. And I'd call up as Tony, go, "Fuck you, Andy. I'm supposed to pick me up. You fuck you," and hang up. Like a 1-sentence thing. I wouldn't go crazy because you didn't want to let anybody know what. And one time, and I asked Andy one time, I said, wow, I said, man, you know, we're talking about it. And he goes, I may need you to be him. I said, really? He goes, yeah, I mean, you know, Bob's arm's broken. But then I said to him, would you get mad if I ever imitated Tony? And he said, no, no. And when he was really sick towards the end, I only saw him one time at Cantor's, and he was walking out of the restaurant. And I hadn't seen each other in a while. We hadn't seen each other. And I said, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. And he said, never break character. He said, and if and when I'm gone, uh, uh, keep Tony alive. And I was like, wow, why is he telling me? Well, years later, so I really never ran, whether or not I did Tony Clifton, I'm not gonna get into all that, but the one time I really pulled a coup, we were in San Francisco with Incredibly Strange Rock and Roll Wrestling. So Johnny Legend, who was the Rockabilly Bastard, and Johnny, I hope you're still around. I haven't heard from him, but Johnny was me and him used to write the shows and everything. The same thing with the IFW. We do all the writing. And when I was the announcer for that, I would always say to him, okay, let's write the scenario and everything. Then you write the match. When you give me the script, I don't want to know the ending. Why? I want to be surprised too. Because I'm the announcer. I should be surprised too. I should come off like I really didn't know. And I that's how I would do it. So we're up there that night. And he gives me a silver Santo mask which was a mask actually worn by Abel Salazar in a Santo movie. So I put this whole thing on, and I put on it was Christmas time. I put on a ridiculously ugly Christmas sweater, and I'm going around the building and I'm shaking hands and wishing people Merry Christmas. Then I'm supposed to announce the matches. So I'm announcing the matches like this. Oh, there's a big hold. Oh, what's going to happen now? Oh my, it's Christmas. We should not be fighting. This is going on the whole first half of the show. Johnny has no idea what I'm going to do because I got a goatee and everything. And he comes up and he grabs the mic from me and he's really serious. I bring you up here and you're fucking it up and you don't know what you're doing and da da da. And I grab the mic back from him and I rip the mask off and I go, you know what? Fuck you. Yeah. And I look at the crowd. I go, that's right. It's me, Tony Clifton. I'm back. You suck. And fuck everybody. I'll be back in the next half. And the place went fucking insane. Oh, it's Tony Clifton. Huh? So we had bands on there like the Mentors. It was the sickest band I ever saw. Yeah. Pearl Harbor, and I forget who the other band was. I think Johnny performed, the Rockabilly Bastard, but it was the sickest. But the audience went nuts. And again, Incredibly Strange Rock and Roll Wrestling. We rolled with that for quite a few years until they closed Moguls down. And then we did a show downtown and we drew like 4,000 people at the I think it was called the Mansion or Crash Mansion, was a joint downtown LA. And we packed it out and we had a really great show that night. That show was an independent show that really had a big impact on the whole California wrestling scene. We were getting people wanted to come and wrestle. Like I said, Chris Jericho would come when he had a night off on a Saturday night. If they finished, I guess, in town, he'd show up at the show later on and hang out. And it was a pretty good run. We had a good run with that. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I always feel like if Kaufman was still with us, he probably would have worked a little bit with WWE, and he'd probably definitely be in the Hall of Fame. If
yeah,
he
definitely, because
he should be. Yeah, you know what I mean.
I went to one of the WrestleManias was in Anaheim in like 98 or 99 or 2001. I can't remember. It was one of them. No, it was a little later than that, in the 2000s, but it does. Anyway, I went to I was in the 90s. I went to the show and it was the one where Roddy Piper and Dustin Rhodes beat each other on a truck and then come stumbling into the arena. I remember that was one of them. And I went to the after party for the WWE for the WrestleMania party. And I get in there and I'm walking around and I got in by fate, because the Tom Joyner show, who I was writing for, Tom Joyner Morning Show, had tickets to get in. They had passes, and Jetta slipped me a pass, so I got in. And I'm walking around in there, and I'm a little lost because here's all these wrestling stars and that. And I see Jerry Lawler. So I went over and I sat down by Jerry Lawler, and I said, Mr. Lawler, I'm a big fan, you know. And he went, so am I. And I said, yeah, I've always enjoyed what you do. And he goes, so do I. And he's trying to get rid of me. And I went, yeah, I love to work with Andy. Andy said that, you know, when you dropped him on his head, he got a stinger. That's why you had to wear the thing. And he just looks at me. And I go, yeah, me and Andy were really close. And I started to talk to him about everything Andy told me that was all the inside shit. And Jerry and Lawler, he warmed up to me, and we sat for 45 minutes talking about everything. And then I told him, I said, my mother was a big wrestling fan, and she passed away a couple of years ago. But on the Sunday before she passed away, she was watching WWE and cursing you out. And he goes, oh, I love that. I love it. I said, yeah, she really, you know, she really bought in. And it was really a pleasure to be around all those guys, hanging out and everything. Diesel, or what's his name?
Nash. Kevin Nash.
Kevin Nash, yeah. He had that big feud with Heartbreak Kid. That was, I think, the big match. And they were all still with the kayfabe shit. I walked by and I said, well, I'm glad you guys are still friends. Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, we have to fight, but we're friends. And I looked at Jerry Law and I winked, and he just laughed. It's like, you're in here, everybody's drinking and hanging out with each other. It's obvious this is a show. I mean, you know, and I had told Jerry I worked with the Guerreros and stuff, and he was pretty cool about it. I still think once in a while of contacting wow, I don't know why names jump out. There's so many of them at the same time. Chris Jericho, and maybe sending him a tape to do something with AEW, but AEW is so nutty. I don't, you know, I don't know if I'm up for that anymore. I can't take bumps. You can't throw me through the ropes anymore. You know, I can't land. That's things will break real easy. So we don't do that. But
I know. I always, you know, you got to work with the late great Bill Hicks, which a tragedy that we lost him so long ago. Like, when I think of comedians, I would love to hear their opinion of what's going on nowadays. Like, it's Carlin, of course. We had him for a good stretch, but we lost Hicks so early. Like, what was it like to know Billy Hicks?
Bill, I knew Bill from the time he came to LA when he was about 16, 17. He drove out there in it wasn't a Pinto, it was a car similar to that. And we became friends. Well, I became friends with a lot of the guys in Houston. I used to run the potluck night at the Comedy Store for Mitzi. And Joey, make sure that you don't put all the nuts on at the same time. And because I used to run the one in Westwood, and I had a big college following for Monday nights, and a lot of, let's say, people a little off kilter would show up to perform, who would be a little fucking nuts. And I decided, instead of interspersing them throughout the night, I'm just going to put them all on between 7:30 and 8 and get it over with, or 8 and 8:30. So they all used to come for Joey's Nut Hour. And she asked me, why do you do that? I said, to get it over with. So, oh, all right. So then at the store, when I was doing the Mondays there, I kind of was doing the same thing. I would get all the crazies, I don't know. But the running the open mic nights for her was quite a trip, because I lost my train of thought for a second, but I had that's how I met all the guys from Texas. When they all first came, Bill Hicks, Ron Robertson, Steve Epstein, oh God, Fred Greenlee, let me see, the late great Conrad Lawrence. All these guys came up from Texas, and they're all from Houston. They all show up because they all travel together. And that night, I'm saying to them, all you guys, they were all gentlemen. They were, okay, all you guys are in from Houston. Okay. let me get all your original hometowns, because if I bring you all on as this next guy is also from Houston, and here's another guy, she's gonna go, why is this? They're all the same fucking guy. So, because I knew Mitzi backwards and forwards, it was hard to figure her out, but I
Yeah.
kind of did. And so I said, where are you from? Okay, you're originally from Ohio. And Sam, I said, where are you from? Oh, you're from Peoria. Okay, now you're from Peoria. You're born in Houston. You're from Houston. You're from here. You're from there. Okay. So I interspersed them all. They all really did really well. Hicks wasn't with them on that trip. He came like a year later. But they, because he was probably too young to make that trip at the time. But Ron Robertson, we call long ball because he had played minor league ball. And then he was a really funny comedian. When he retired from that, he became the biggest Mercedes-Benz guy in Beverly Hills. I mean, everybody came to Ron to get their Mercedes, all the stars and everything. And anyway, I put everybody went on. Everybody had a great set because I interspersed them, and I didn't say they were all from the same place. And they all came up to me and they said, if you ever come to Houston, you know, we're going to take care of you. Don't worry, blah, blah, blah. I said, great. I said, how long are you guys here for? They said 2 weeks. I said, all right, come back next Monday. Same thing. I'll get you guys on. I'll make sure you get good spots and I did. And I never thought about going to Houston in my life. What am I going to Houston for? I'm here at the Comedy Store. The whole world is here.
Yeah.
Not true. So the following, it was like a year and a half later, I get booked at the Laugh Stop in Houston. The first time I'd ever get on a plane, first time I'd ever go out of California to do stand up. So I get there, and the first night it snowed in Houston. I was opening for Bruce Baby Man Baum, and it snowed, and it was like maybe not even that much. I mean, it was like heavy flurries, and they were breaking out the plows to plow the snow, and they're breaking pieces of the street up because they don't know what they're doing. They're tearing up the asphalt, whatever.
Yeah.
So I do the show that night, and we finish. And as soon as I said goodnight, the show, you know, Bruce finishes his set. He was Baby Man at the time, and he had the song She Got Marty Feldman Eyes, to take off on Betty Davis Eyes, that song. So Alexander's laughing. He's
Oh, yeah.
quiet, but he's laughing. And I look when I come off stage, and there's Ron Robertson and I think it was Mike Vance, and they grabbed me and they dragged me over to the Houston Comedy Annex, and I go on, and I perform, and I had a great time, and they weren't kidding. They took good care of me that whole week. I mean, they were taking me out to eat. They were taking me here, showed me this place, that place. Every night after the show, there they were to, you know, take me around. And I never felt so welcomed and respected. I mean, it was great. So the following year, which was again a year later, I had in 82, I really worked on building myself. So I had 45, 50 minutes finally. And I was doing a lot of local stuff, but then I got booked again in Houston. The owner of the club wanted to have me back. So I was in Oklahoma, Houston. I went all over the place for a couple of months. And the owner of the Houston Laugh Stop, the late great Howard Margus, called me up and he went, I understand you'd like to live here. I said, yeah, I wouldn't mind living in Houston for a while. He goes, I got 5 rooms at the Allen Park Inn. I only use 3 of them. Take a room, and then your rent is once, twice a week. You come and MC for me, or if I need you that week. I said, yeah, fine. So I had a hotel room, and I had access to a car here and there. And I started to hang out with, that's when Bill Hicks I met in 82, 83, but that's when I started hanging out with Bill a lot, because Sam was in LA, and I was hanging out with Bill a lot there in the, when he was in Houston. We hang out at his place. He lived in the same building. Johnny Winter, the guitarist, had a apartment in, and I'd see Johnny in the elevator sometimes. And then I got to be friends with him a few years later. My friend Steve Pearl, who was also in Comedy's Dirtiest Dozen, he introduced me to. He was good friends with Johnny, and he introduced me to him, and that became a friendship that was until the day Johnny died. And if you don't know who Johnny Winter is, let's put it this way. If you're a guitarist, Jimi Hendrix said, I like to play the blues, but I wish I could get blue like Johnny. So that pretty much says it all about Johnny Winter. So he was one of the greatest of all time. And I got to open for Johnny, and work with him. And there was a place called the Coach House down in San Juan Capistrano. They would book comedians to open for bands, and I wound up working in front of, oh God, everybody from Debbie Harry to Jimmy Cliff to Nils Lofgren. I mean, Albert King. I got to open for all these great music bands, musical people, and got to do that on the road as well. And again, I was going back and forth on good old Muse Airlines back and forth to LA and working in the Southwest a lot. And Austin at the time was a really great place to do stand up. Now it's a big deal because Joe Rogan opened up the mothership there, and everybody and their mother moved there. So now it's a little crowded and kind of, it's kind of like, nutty like the Comedy Store. But and I don't know Joe Rogan that well. The only thing we have in common is we're both born at St. Michael's Hospital in Newark, New Jersey. I was born 13 years before him. And that's about it. I hardly know Joe, but he did something really great. He got together with the Screen Actors Guild while he was at the Comedy Store and created a fund that if a comedian can't make his bill payments, or it needs a car payment or rent, they can go and get a grant, go get money and they'll make the check out to your landlord or whatever. So, for all the crazy stuff he does on his podcast or whatever, I'm not an avid listener. I've listened here and there. But he's, he did some things for the comics that other comics never thought about doing. If they yell and want to strike and whatever, well, you can go and get things that you don't have to strike about, Yeah.
No, he's definitely like, he's almost like, there's been many fathers to comedy, I think, but he's definitely like almost in that position now with a lot of the younger comics. And that podcast is fucking like the biggest thing in the earth.
It's phenomenal. And he's a real good host. When he hosted Fear Factor, anything like that, as far as his stand-up, I don't have a lot of comments on it. I watched his new special, and Joe does what Joe does. Exactly. So some of it I'm laughing at, some of it I'm trying to figure out because I don't know everything he does. But as far as a host, he's a real good question asker, as I like to put it, and he lets them finish. He doesn't try to top them or whatever. He lets them say what they got to say. And as far as anti-vaxxing and all of that, that's up to a person. If they don't want to get a vaccination or they don't want to, and he gets into a lot of crazy conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
I'm still looking for the people who want to stop me. So it's both of them. So.
You also know Dice before he was Dice, when he was still Andrew Silverstein.
Oh yeah, when Andy first came to the club, he was living in Pasadena, and he would take like a $40 cab ride to come to Westwood to perform. And I thought I said, well, all right, if he can afford it. But that's a lot of balls to drive all the way to Westwood to just do this 10 minutes. But he would go on like the Nutty Professor, like Jerry Lewis in the frock coat, and then he would drink something and turn into John Travolta.
Impressions was his kind of thing in the original, in the beginning.
Yeah, he did a lot of well, he lived at Crestwood, the house up above the Comedy Store.
Mitzi's house there.
Yeah, and it was so funny because he had a bedroom off the kitchen. It was a very small room, and he was in there off the kitchen, and he lived there with his girlfriend sometimes. But Dice would be in there, and all day long, you would hear him practicing Elvis. Or you'd hear him doing Little Miss Muffet Saddle. You'd hear him rehearsing all day, all day. And we think well, at the time we would think, well, let's say he's a little nuts. But then I start talking to him and I realized he wasn't nuts. He was just getting ready. And there's a difference because we were talking one day in the parking lot and Sam used to go on stage, Kinison, and he'd scream and just scream. He'd just yelling and screaming. No jokes, just and Dice sat him down and said, listen, if you're going to go up there with a beret and a coat, make it a character. If you're going to scream, use the scream to punch the joke, not scream the joke. And he sat down with him. And Sam would never admit it, but it was true. He helped them cultivate the character. Because I was in Texas, and I came back after a few months. Because Sam was just, what I did was I was going to give up running the Westwood Comedy Store. I didn't want to be a doorman anymore, and I didn't want to be tied to the place because I was getting offers to work on the road. And I said to him and Kevin, I said, listen, Mitzi needs doormen over there. If you guys take it over, I said, you guys were preachers. It's like running a church. You shake their hands as they come in, you seat them, you shake their hands as they leave. I said, you know what to do. And they did. They took over the Westwood store. She gave it to them. In the documentary, it talks about how I told them how to live there. I said, you could sleep on the stage. You got access to food in the kitchen. Just don't let the guy that runs the kitchen ever see you take any. And you got plenty of liquids over here. You got soda, you got beer, you got, and they would eat the food in the kitchen and get in trouble. And then they'd wind up eating the bar fruit because they were out of money or whatever. But they did that in cartoon form in the documentary, which is pretty funny. And they did a cartoon of me in the documentary, and I never looked so good. I really look good in that cartoon. They really made me a handsome fellow. But and that was another facet of the Comedy Store. That was a 5-6 year period where it was really exciting. Then it got really dark because Sam was getting into a lot of dark stuff. And but it was quite an explosion. I don't know if you want to, what they called it, the boom or whatever. And then by the 90s, people say the boom died, comedy got boring, and it's not true. People don't remember in the early 90s, there were massive floods in the Midwest that just shut down, took out whole towns, took out cities for a while. And comedy clubs were the biggest victims. They were flooded out. They were destroyed. And the club owners would get their $2 million of insurance or $3 million, whatever they had. And they said, hey, we got all this money. We could reopen, or we could just say bye-bye. And so most of them said bye-bye. And that was what crushed the boom a little bit, or quite a bit. And then Comedy Central putting on anybody that would send in a fucked up tape also hurt it, because then everybody looked and went, oh, I could do that. Yeah, anybody can get up and be a fucking idiot for 5 minutes and not be funny, or think you're being funny, or stand there going, yeah, well, that's kind of fucked, So that kind of hurt things too. And it wasn't until, I guess, the late 90s, early 2000s, comedy started to come back a bit. There is a boom for it now. The only problem I see with comedy, and maybe I need to get more stuff on Instagram and TikTok and all of that, but clubs are hiring people that by how many followers they have on TikTok and Instagram, and they bring them in to headline a show, and these people come in and the audiences are leaving in after 20 minutes, 30 minutes, because these guys are not performers. They don't have a show. They're up there just talking, waiting for everybody to go nuts. And it's like, that's not what they haven't put the time in to learn stand up. I talk to people here. I'm living in Tucson right now, and they got a cool little comedy scene here. They really do. And I met a lot of talented people. There's a lot of talented people in the Phoenix and Tempe area too. And but I run into people have been doing this shit for like 6 months. And when I say shit, they're doing shit. They're
Yeah.
doing it 6 months, and they'll come up and they go, well, I'm ready to headline. I'm going, ready to headline what? The bathroom? What are you fucking talking about, man? You know, I mean, please, you insult people that are doing it 10, 12 years. You stand there, tell them, well, you know, I play all the mics, and you don't headline an open mic. Open mic means a poet can go on, a guitar player, whatever. It's hoot night. It's hoot nanny. That, you know, we all of these expressions are you know, people forget that's what the potluck night was designed strictly for comedy. And by Mitzi calling it potluck, people actually would show up with a meatloaf or a cake thinking they were coming to, but that really happened. The first night I ever went on, I didn't talk to anybody in the line. I didn't do my jokes to people. I was literally pooping in my pants. I didn't know what I was gonna. I had practiced everything I was gonna do, and then Mitzi signed you in, and I didn't know she was the owner. I thought she was just some nice lady, and they gave you a drink ticket so you could get a soda or coffee or whatever. And I went on and I did 4 minutes. It's funny because the actor Leo Rossi was sitting next to me, and I mentioned him because he's in so many movies and stuff, and he's such a nice. He really is a cool guy. We've run into each other a few times since, and it's so long ago. But he was from Philadelphia. He got up and did some stand up, and he was really funny. And then we were talking because he's from Philly, I'm from New Jersey, and he was the only guy I talked to that whole fucking night. The only person I talked to when I was in the audience. And the MC was a guy named Howard Taylor, who if Howard came up to tell you that you won the the Powerball, $500 million, he would do it in a manner that made you think he was telling you your mother died. You know, you really. He was like that. He was so sullen. So I go on and I did my 4 minutes. I did Richard Pryor doing the weather, and I actually turned around what could have been a disaster into a really funny set. I had more balls in the NBA. I was 20 years old, and I said that I must have cursed. I don't know, 100 times in 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and I go to sit down. And the audience really liked it. And then Howard came over to me and said, the owner would like to speak to you. And I turned to this fellow, Leo, who I had just met. I went, well, I guess they're throwing me out. That's it. We shook hands. I go over and it's the same lady. And I realize, oh, this is the owner. So I sit down and she goes, how long have you been doing stand up? And I said, I don't know. That's the first time I ever went on. Oh my God, you were wonderful. Go over to Westwood, call in for spots. I gotta, and I had no idea what I was getting into, man. I'm, you know, got 4 minutes. I'm following Jay Leno at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. I had no fucking idea what I was doing. I learned it piecemeal. I learned it the hard way. There was a night I remember in 1978. It's so funny. I was sitting there in my bedroom and I called the Troubadour. I called like 5 places that had an open mic, and all of them told me, oh, no, we don't want you. No, we know who you are. Get out of here. You suck. And I was so devastated. And about a month later, that's when my friend Mitch Walters, who was a great writer, one of the funniest, fastest writers ever. He was a really funny guy and a great stand-up. He wrote for a lot of comedians. And he pulled me aside and said, come to work with me in the Taft building downtown in Hollywood. I said, what do you do? He goes, we're on the phone. We sell stationary supplies to churches. I'm still doing penance for that. Hi, Father. This is a pastor. This is Jack Brady with American U.S. Disbursement. You have it seems here you have about $500 worth of entitlement. Really? Well, that was trying to get them to buy $500 worth of shit, which was actually, we'd be giving them $1,000 worth of blah, 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 blah. But every day, Mitch was working with me, teaching me how to put an act together. And then finally, later that year, I worked all summer really hard on getting funny. And then I finally made regular at the Comedy Store. And at the same time, in October of that year, the Yankees were staying right next door at the Hyatt House. So they're there for the World Series. So I'm breaking into the Comedy Store and meeting the Yankees every day and sitting with them. And, you know, and Yogi Berra knew my uncle because my uncle worked in the studios and worked on a commercial with him. So now Yogi Berra is introducing me to George Steinbrenner. And, hey, this is my nephew's friend. He's a good guy. At least that's what they told me at the police department. He would say all this shit. He was a great guy. And so, yeah, it was a really interesting way to break into the Comedy Store that year. And it's that's it. You know, that's the fun stuff. You want to hear the bad stuff? No.
Well, I mean, we've been going a good distance here. You know what I mean? We usually run like an hour into it. This was an absolute pleasure. We'd love for you to come back. I know we didn't really even get to tap into the TV and movie stuff yet. I'd love to have you come back soon and do like a part
Sure.
2 to this if you're down.
Yeah, I would love to. You know, I've never played Boston. I got friends there like Lenny Clark, Steve Sweeney. Oh God, I can't think of how many guys are from there, but
So many.
it's one of the best. Oh, Bill Burr.
Bill Burr, the great, but even Joe Rogan was over here. Patrice
Hogan, yeah,
O'Neal,
yeah, he grew up in Boston.
Stephen Wright.
I've never
you know?
played there, and I always was afraid that, well, I'm a Yankee fan, they'll hate me. No, that's not true. It's a great, great, great comedy town.
Yeah,
Bill
yeah.
Maher cut his teeth. He's from Jersey, but he cut his teeth in Boston. And if my friend Bruce Kirschenbaum, who was a writer on First and 10, that's why people don't know me. I did a series with OJ. That was the end of that. No, but
Yeah.
but he was from Boston, and I really haven't. You know, I can honestly say I haven't met any pricks from Boston. You can't.
Hell yeah.
Everybody's
today.
been cool. I mean,
Okay, I'm the biggest from Boston.
I'm sorry,
Right.
I said, one of the
Alexander.
biggest pricks from Boston.
You keep interrupting, Alexander. I'm getting very all through this thing. You just keep interrupting. I don't know what you know. He interrupts.
He's on drugs. He's on drugs. Alex is on drugs. That's why he's so dark over there.
I like the news, Kenny. What can I say? I love the news.
Well,
Kenny.
I'm glad you brought up Lenny. We love Lenny. Like I said, we do the independent
man.
films. Lenny actually reached out to me, which was an incredible, like, because I've always been a huge fan of comedy. He's seen our film, DJ Stan the Man, and he sent me a message on the book. And he was like, hey, man, like, I really like that film a lot. I know how hard it is to make, like, I'll send you a link for the movie.
I'd
like,
love to see that. Yeah.
Like, I know how hard it is to make like a comedy for no money that like flows nicely and you get laughs out of. And I'm like, it was one of the greatest kudos I've ever had. You know what I mean? Because
Lenny, the first time I ever saw him was in the main room in the Comedy Store, and I'm standing there watching him, and he's performing, and he's got that timing. He's just going, and he goes, he did a joke. There was no laugh, and he goes, hey, I don't have to be here. I can be home practicing karate with Elvis's ghost. And that was it. I said, oh, this guy's, and him and another guy named Jackie Diamond had come out of Boston. And let's not forget Stephen Wright.
Of course.
I take my hat off in honor and reverence to Barry Crimmins, because man, I don't know why he didn't keep up his impressions in Curly, but the guy was really funny, and his documentary on the church and all of that was just brilliant. I'm a Catholic. I actually practice trying to get better at it, but people say to me, why don't you quit? You know, I said, no, it's like, what, you know, do you stay in America to make it better? So I stay in my religion to make it better. I'm going to quit. Where am I going to go? Where am I going to go over to the guy with the 800 number that wants $500 every 10 minutes? You know, I'm happy with the church. I give them $10. They leave me alone. See, that's the great thing about being a Catholic. You sin, you go in. And when I was growing up, we were street kids. So we try to hustle a priest. It's like, Father, you know, I committed this sin, but you know, I'm going to do the same thing tonight. You think I could get like, maybe spot me some, and I get some spot absolution here. You spot me some absolution. So,
yeah. Where can people look at your show? I know you got a YouTube page and social media. Where do you want people to?
The YouTube page, which is being there's some stuff on there. I got a new web page is going up. It's right now you got to use the W's, www.joeygaynor.com. Yeah. And all kinds of clips are going to be going up there. I'll put the one up from I'm going to put up Comedy's Dirtiest Dozen, some stuff from like the 5 Heartbeats, and martial law and other All I Want for Christmas. I did that movie with Leslie Nielsen, and I got in trouble for telling the little people story. Well, not in trouble, but I was in South Dakota and I was telling the story about all the little people on the show there, which is that's a pretty good story. We'll do that next time.
Yeah,
About
yeah.
hundreds of little people, and a lot of little people haven't seen that many little people all at once. A lot of squeaking going on. So, and that was good. I'll explain that the next time.
Yeah. Well,
But yeah, it's a pleasure to talk to you guys, and anytime I would, you know, we'll make another date. We'll come back here, and I'll make cake, and I'll
hell
eat
yeah.
it in front of you.
Hell yeah. We definitely get a part 2 coming. So Joey, thanks again for coming on the show. I'll hit you up soon. I'll get you that link, and we'll figure out a date to get you back sooner than probably within the next like month or so. We'll get you on.
Yeah, I'd love to.
part 2
No,
to
it'd be
this.
great, really. And
Cool.
there is some stuff I'll be plugging. If you're in the Arizona area, I'll be with Andy Huggins. He's coming out. We're going to be in Yuma and Flagstaff and Bisbee and a few other places. So that's coming up, and some other stuff that's cooking for Halloween, and that we're putting a show together. And yeah, it's you know, just making the best of the best.
We'll
So
get you
that's how
down.
you do it.
Hell yeah, we'll get you down in Boston doing it big.
I'm dying to come to Boston. I really want to. I've never been, and I know I'd have a good time there because
Hell yeah.
I'm Irish. I'm half Irish, so I'll have half a good time.
That's
Well, I'm
it
half
right
Irish,
there,
half Italian. The Boston pizza's delicious. You know, I shouldn't have any problems there at all. So
Yeah.
looking forward to it.
Hell
Definitely.
yeah. Well, we appreciate everybody out there listening, and we'll catch y'all on the next episode of the BoomBastiCAST.
Peace. Take
Peace.
care and have a great year, not just a great day.